On August 15, 1971, the President of the United States broke the world's financial system on purpose. What they built to replace it is the reason you pay the prices you do for everything, and we're going to reverse engineer it from scratch. It's not a computer, it's not a law, it's a deal. A single agreement between two governments, made in secret, that rewired the global economy at the infrastructure level. Engineers call a system like this a closed-loop control mechanism. Economists call it the petrodollar system. Most people call it nothing because they've never seen the diagram. Today, we're going to draw it. Before we get into the machine, I want to be precise about what we're actually looking at, because this is not a conspiracy theory video, and it's not a geopolitics opinion piece. This is an engineering analysis of a real system, one that has documented inputs, documented outputs, and documented feedback loops that you can verify in IMF data, Federal Reserve records, and the memoirs of the people who built it. Here's why it matters to you specifically. If you work in engineering, finance, defense, or technology, and you're trying to understand why your cost models keep drifting, why supply chain shocks behave the way they do, or why certain US foreign policy decisions appear irrational on the surface, the petrodollar loop is almost always part of the answer. It's the hidden input no one added to the model. So let's build the machine. To understand what the petrodollar system does, you need to understand the problem it was designed to fix. In 1944, the world established a new financial architecture called the Bretton Woods system. The logic was simple. Every major currency would be pegged to the US dollar, and the US dollar would be pegged to gold at a fixed rate of $35 per troy ounce. This gave the global economy a stable reference point, a ground truth, an engineering anchor. It worked until it didn't. By the late 1960s, the United States had been financing the Vietnam War and the Great Society programs simultaneously. It was spending more than it was taking in, and under Bretton Woods, other nations had the right to exchange their US dollar reserves for physical gold. They started doing exactly that. By 1971, US gold reserves had fallen to dangerous levels. The system had a fundamental flaw. It required the US to run a trade surplus to maintain credibility, but the US needed to run a deficit to finance its global role. That's a classic design conflict. Two requirements that cannot coexist. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon appeared on national television and announced that the United States was ending the convertibility of the dollar to gold. Bretton Woods collapsed overnight. The dollar was now a fiat currency, backed by nothing but the United States government's promise to honor it. The problem, if the dollar isn't backed by gold, what makes anyone want to hold it? What gives it value? What is the new anchor? The US government needed a new machine, and they had about 3 years to build one. The solution came from an unlikely place, the 1973 oil crisis. When OPEC embargoed oil exports to the US in 1973 in response to American support for Israel in the Yom Kippur War, oil prices quadrupled in months. It was an economic shock that exposed a critical vulnerability. The United States, like every industrialized economy, ran on oil, and it didn't control the supply. The Nixon administration, led by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, identified this as an engineering problem with an engineering solution. If you cannot control the supply of oil, control the pricing mechanism of oil. In 1974, the United States entered into a secret agreement with Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter and the de facto leader of OPEC. The terms, as declassified documents and accounts from that period described them, Saudi Arabia would price and sell its oil exclusively in US dollars. In exchange, the United States would provide military protection and weaponry to the Saudi government and would recycle the resulting dollar surpluses back into US Treasury bonds, financing American debt at scale. Other OPEC members joined the arrangement over the following years, and here is where the engineering insight becomes remarkable. This is not a bilateral deal, it's a global forcing function. If oil, the input commodity for virtually every manufactured good, every transport network, every military operation on Earth, must be purchased in US dollars, then every nation on Earth must hold US dollars in reserve. Not because they trust the US, not because of gold, because of physics, because their factories run on oil, and oil costs dollars. This is the petrodollar machine, and it has a beautiful self-reinforcing feedback loop that any control systems engineer will immediately recognize. Loop component 1, global oil demand creates global USD demand. Nations must earn or borrow dollars. Loop component 2, oil exporters primarily Gulf states, accumulate vast USD surpluses. They have too many dollars to hold in cash. Loop component 3, they recycle those surpluses into US Treasury bonds. This is petrodollar recycling. It finances the US government's deficit spending at artificially low interest rates. Loop component 4, low borrowing costs allow the US to maintain its global military presence, which protects the oil states and enforces the pricing arrangement. Loop component 5, the arrangement holds. Oil is still priced in dollars. Go to loop component 1. This is a positive feedback loop with a strategic lock-in mechanism. It is self-sustaining as long as oil is the world's primary energy input, and the US military remains the world's primary security guarantor. That's not an opinion, that's the diagram. Every machine has failure modes, and the petrodollar system has 3 that are worth understanding precisely, because they're already in motion. Failure mode 1, oil demand declines. If the world's economies transition away from oil through electrification, nuclear, or other energy sources, the forcing function weakens. Nations no longer need dollar reserves to access energy. The foundational logic of the machine degrades. This is not imminent. Oil remains the world's dominant energy input, but the trajectory matters for long-range analysis. Failure mode 2, alternative pricing mechanisms emerge. China has been systematically building infrastructure for oil to be priced and traded in yuan, the petro-yuan. The Shanghai International Energy Exchange launched yuan-denominated oil futures in 2018. Adoption has been slow, but the engineering effort is real and funded at the state level. It's an attempt to build a parallel machine. Failure mode 3, US fiscal credibility erodes. The petrodollar loop requires other nations to accept US Treasury bonds as a store of value. If US debt levels, inflation, or political instability cause sovereign wealth funds to diversify away from treasuries, the recycling loop loses efficiency. None of these failure modes have broken the machine. The dollar remains the world's dominant reserve currency by a large margin, but the machine is showing stress in places it didn't show stress 20 years ago. That's worth tracking, and it's why the system is a prerequisite for understanding almost everything else this channel covers. So here is what you now have that most people don't. You have the diagram. You can see the machine, the 1971 Nixon shock that created the problem, the 1974 Saudi deal that solved it, the petrodollar recycling loop that has financed American deficit spending for 50 years, and the 3 failure modes that are under stress right now. The next time you see a headline about oil prices, dollar reserves, Saudi arms deals, or US military deployment in the Gulf, you'll know which part of the machine you're looking at. That's the point of this channel. Modern civilization runs on machines you cannot see. Our job is to draw them. If that's the kind of thinking you want more of, subscribe. And if you want to go deeper on this one, the next video breaks down the specific cost loop that made the F-35 program economically impossible to cancel. The machine doesn't stop, neither do we.